Hello everybody, my name is Ray. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Today we're going to be talking about The Chosen. We are finally starting our video review series on The Chosen. In this series, I'm going to be going episode by episode on The Chosen because I think that's the best way to cover this TV show. Because there's a lot of content to cover, and I want it to be quick, brief. So definitely, if you like the video, and also subscribe to the channel so you don't miss this breakdown and analysis of The Chosen. This video, we're going to be talking about episode 1. I have called you by name. That is the name of the pilot episode, and we got to judge it like a pilot of any other show, great or small. And there's two ways to make a pilot good. Because obviously the goal of a pilot is to capture audience interest. That is the goal of a pilot. It needs to be interesting. And in order to be interesting, you need to have interesting characters, and you need to have interesting things happen to those characters. And one thing I always look for when I am watching a pilot is I want an answer, a firm answer to the question, why is the show beginning now? Because usually in any TV show, the story or the characters pre-exist the first episode of the TV show. So why is the show beginning when it's beginning? Obviously, we can look at a show like Seinfeld, and I think the show Seinfeld really begins when you start to see, the point of the beginning of the show is when Jerry Seinfeld and Elaine Bennis are more comfortable exchanging their dating lives to each other. And that's kind of really the start of the show. Even a sitcom has a reason that the show begins. And the goal of a pilot, like I said, is to be interesting. And, a show that does this really well is Mad Men, which is about these 1960s white-collar workers in New York City, which is not the most interesting thing to make a TV show about. But they nailed it on creating an interesting character in Don Draper in the very first episode. And again, that's a great show. And it's also a very good critique of the sexual revolution, if you think about it like that. So with that said, where does the pilot of The Chosen rank? And it's hot garbage. The first episode of The Chosen is hot garbage. It's trash. It's trash. And even worse, what's made even worse is the fact that their app sucks balls. This app does not cast well to a TV whatsoever. I mean, seriously, Blaze TV can cast to a TV, and people rag on that app all the time. So, Chosen's app, terrible. Do not recommend that as a watching tool. So with that said, otherwise, apart from the app, I do think that it's well made. I do think that it's well made. I do think that it's competently acted. The dialogue could use a little bit of tweaking. Because, again, do they know what a liver does in ancient Roman times? I don't know. But with that said, the episode, not very interesting for the most part. The characters are rather boring. Nicodemus is a very boring character. Well acted, I would grant, but a boring character. His story arc consists of, starting out with a traffic stop by Romans. That's basically what it was. And urged to, help the Jews put out for more taxation. And he, condemns people for fishing on the Sabbath. And then he's compelled by the Romans to help a woman who's possessed with a demon. Nicodemus cannot do that because he claims he's not God. Or he concludes that he's not God, therefore he could not have been able to have done it. And the other characters that are followed are Simon, Andrew, and Matthew, the tax collector. And Simon is kind of like the wild brother, and then Andrew is, your more cautious one. Now, I'm under the impression that Simon was a zealot. We call him Simon the Zealot. So, unless that's supposed to be Simon Peter. I maybe I'm lost on that one as well. Because, Peter is married, Simon is not, but Andrew, I'm very confused on much of these characters, because if that's Simon Peter, then that is a very young cast job. So that's not a good cast job. And if that's supposed to be Simon the Zealot, I again, I'm not seeing that connection there. So with that said, I assume the whole way that he was Simon the Zealot, because again, I assume that Peter was older. He's generally thought to be the oldest of the disciples. So if I whiffed on that completely, that is not my fault. There I go, not taking personal responsibility for my own viewing interpretations of the show. So obviously, Simon the Zealot turns out to be Simon the Snitch, because there's this whole tax affair, and how I guess the Roman tax code was, as convoluted as the United States tax code, except there's this thing called usury and heavy usury involved with the Roman tax code. So again, that was kind of a main plot, and he's trying to sneak out and fish on the Sabbath, and get back and cuddle with his wife and all that other stuff, and then get into fights and gamble and stuff like that. It's really uninteresting to me. I was not interested by the Simon plotline at all. It's just so generic of, I'm in trouble with money and I need to find a quick way to get ahead. That's kind of the plotline it was going off of, which could be an interesting plotline, but it's not an interesting plotline to apply to source material that's from the Bible. That is the point that I'm trying to make. All this stuff on its own could be interesting, or not really all of the stuff. Like, I don't think the Nicodemus plotline is all that interesting at all. Again, his plotline is about him being unable to do an exorcism on Mary Magdalene, on a woman who ends up being Mary Magdalene. And just to do another spoiler alert, in case it wasn't clear that I was doing an analysis, which means spoiling, let's see. Jesus does appear at the end of the episode, presumably, and heals Mary Magdalene, which is not an event that happens until Luke 8. And Luke 8 takes place after the 12 disciples are chosen, and Jesus is, beginning to do some touring, so to speak. So again, this is already out of order as far as the Bible is concerned. This is all extra biblical plot. There's nothing in this storyline that was remotely in Scripture. That I want to make that clear in episode 1. There's nothing in that storyline that was remotely in line with Scripture, either in the events or the order that these events took place. And we see also Matthew the tax collector being, and what I gather is that, they made Matthew basically autistic. They made him a math autist. And I think we're going to dive into more of that later on. So we're going to probably talk about that in a later review video. So we'll dive into that later. But so far, the characters are kind of lame, kind of generic. I don't see anything really interesting about this show. I'm not saying they're poorly acted, but these characters are pretty, they seem like Hollywood tropes that have kind of been tried and cliched by now. So that's kind of how it feels. It feels very cliche. That's why this pilot was garbage. It was not interesting. And, it's not like a show can have a pilot that doesn't make waves and be good, but I'm trying to come up with a show that has a bad pilot and then recovers from there. I'm having trouble in my head doing that because I watch a lot of shows that have good pilots. But, just to throw out a classic example, but I don't think this is a bad pilot. The Star Trek pilot, the original pilot of Star Trek, was not carried over into the regular original series. In fact, they recasted every character but Spock in the original, and then just used that footage from the original pilot in the episode The Menagerie. So the pilot was well made enough to be used in a later episode, but otherwise was not suitable for air because Captain Pike was a little too based. So, otherwise, again, interesting show, interesting pilot. It upset some sensibilities that Pike wasn't about women being in Starfleet or whatever. It was something like that. So anyway, it's not like The Chosen. It's not like I'm writing The Chosen off as a garbage series from here, but obviously that first impression was terrible. I give it 2 out of 5, and mostly that 2 is coming from, I believe it was competently acted and competently made, but it was uninteresting. And if we want to really dive into whether Mary Magdalene being the first of the chosen, what does that mean? How significant is it that Mary Magdalene was chosen first in this series? And if I haven't already said this already, I'm pretty sure The Chosen's made by Mormons who are experts at creating stories that did not happen in Scripture about Jesus. So this is their wheelhouse. But a lot of Christians are obviously very interested in The Chosen. I think there's a high probability that Mary Magdalene, and I've only seen one episode. There's a high probability that Mary Magdalene was chosen first to kind of infiltrate a feminist message, because obviously that does not happen in Scripture until after the 12 disciples are chosen. So for her to be chosen first, what are they trying to say by that? Because they're not following Scripture, obviously. But what are they trying to say with that message? So that's kind of an interesting question I was left with wondering after watching the first episode. And if you've not seen The Chosen, let me know what you think. And if you have seen The Chosen, don't spoil it completely for me, but, feel free to leave your inferences in the comments section below. My name's Ray. This is the Evangelical Dark Web. And if you like this kind of content, also subscribe to the channel. I do Christian movie reviews all the time, and I have reviewed a Christian television series or two. But otherwise, this is some hard-hitting biblical analysis and discernment stuff. Is usually what goes on at Evangelical Dark Web. So I thank you if you're a newcomer and for your subscription if you choose to do that. Have a blessed day, and I will catch you on the next one.